Alright, let's talk about international relations. I know. Sounds like a topic that could make C-SPAN feel like a Michael Bay movie. But stick with me. Today we're looking at two of the biggest players on the world stage, NATO and BRICS. Two massive, global clubs. One, a heavily armed neighborhood watch. It's been around since your grandparents were hearing rock and roll. The other, a newer, eclectic group of countries. They formed their own economic powerhouse. Let's wind the clock back to 1949. World War II had just ended. Europe was a smoldering pile of rubble, and there was a new kid on the block making everyone nervous: the Soviet Union. The USSR was like that one roommate who says they'll just take a little bit of your milk and then drinks the entire carton, leaving a passive-aggressive note. The United States and its Western European allies looked at Joseph Stalin's expansionist ambitions and thought, you know what? We should probably get a really big dog. And so, NATO was born. It was founded by 12 countries, including the US, Canada, the UK, and France, with a single, crystal-clear purpose: to provide collective security against the Soviet threat. It was a classic you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us schoolyard packed, but with nuclear weapons. Now let's switch gears to the other side of the globe and talk about BRICS. The story of BRICS doesn't begin with a treaty or a war. It starts with a 2001 research paper by Goldman Sachs economist Jim O'Neill. He wasn't trying to start a global movement, he was pointing out four big, fast-growing economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China. He coined the acronym BRIC as an investment shorthand. The leaders saw the paper and thought, hey, we are a big deal. Maybe we should hang out. The first BRIC summit happened in 2009 during the global financial crisis. While the West stumbled, these nations saw an opening to boost their influence. Their initial goal was simple: push for a more equitable international order. They wanted a seat at the table, or they'd build their own. In 2010, South Africa joined, adding the S to BRICS. So, how does the NATO machine actually run? Well, it's a highly structured and formal affair, as you'd expect from an organization that manages enough firepower to end the world a few times over. The core principle is collective defense, that famous Article 5 we keep talking about. This is the legal and moral glue that holds the alliance together. Think of it as the ultimate group project where the grade is survival. An attack on, say, Lithuania is legally an attack on United States, Germany, Turkey. This commitment requires constant coordination, joint military exercises, and a standardized approach to equipment and tactics: a Polish jet, an Italian tanker, a Spanish air traffic controller. It's a logistical ballet with very high stakes. Decisions within NATO are made by consensus, which sounds nice and democratic, but can be incredibly tricky in practice. Now let's look at how the other team huddles up. If NATO is a disciplined military platoon, BRICS is more like a dynamic, sometimes chaotic business conference. There is no binding treaty, no integrated command structure, certainly no Article 5. If one member fights, the others send a strongly worded email, not an aircraft carrier. BRICS focuses on economics, finance, and development, reforming global financial governance, promoting trade in their own currencies to reduce reliance on the US dollar funding infrastructure projects. Their biggest achievement is the New Development Bank, launched in 2015. The NDB funds infrastructure and sustainable projects without Western loan strings. As of 2025, BRICS expanded to include Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia. This BRICS Plus move boosted economic weight, population share, GDP, and oil production. Their goals now span energy, food supply chains, cooperation in science, technology cooperation, and space exploration. BRICS is looser and more consensus-based than NATO, aiming for a multipolar world. Comparing NATO and BRICS directly is a bit like comparing a shark and a whale. Both are massive, powerful entities that dominate their respective environments, but they operate in fundamentally different ways and are built for entirely different purposes. NATO is a shark, a predator, a military machine designed for combat. It is centralized, hierarchical, and bound by a rigid, legally binding treaty. BRICS, on the other hand, is more like a whale, a giant of the economic ocean. It's a looser network, more decentralized, whose power is primarily economic and diplomatic, measured in GDP, trade volumes, and development influence. The goals of the two organizations could not be more different. NATO's goal is security through military deterrence. BRICS's goal is to reform that existing order, to create a multipolar world where power is more evenly distributed. In NATO, consensus leads to binding commitments and coordinated military action. In BRICS, Consensus is a statement of shared intent, not a military directive. This makes BRICS more adaptable but also less decisive. It can express collective will, but it struggles to enforce it. They are performing in two very different plays. Let's move away from theory. Look at real-world examples. A perfect example of NATO in action is its response to the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. NATO did not send troops into Ukraine. The alliance immediately activated its defense plans, massively reinforced its eastern flank, sent tens of thousands of troops to Poland, Romania, the Baltic nations. This was a textbook demonstration of NATO's primary function, deterring further aggression, showing a credible, unified military front. The speed and scale showcased the alliance's operational readiness and sent a clear signal to Moscow. Another key NATO action was its mission in Libya in 2011, acting on a United Nations Security Council resolution. NATO enforced a no-fly zone and conducted airstrikes to protect civilians. The intervention led to the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi, but was followed by years of instability and intense debate about unintended consequences. On the BRICS side, the most tangible impact is the New Development Bank, the NDB. It has approved well over 100 projects. Renewable energy plants in Brazil and India, water supply in South Africa, transportation networks in China. A loan to improve rural road connectivity in India directly impacted millions. When you put these two giants side by side, the differences are glaring. The most obvious one is purpose. NATO is a hard power military alliance. BRICS is a soft power economic bloc. NATO is geographically concentrated, mostly wealthy democracies in North America and Europe. BRICS is sprawling and ideologically diverse across Asia, Africa, South America, and the Middle East. NATO, permanent headquarters, integrated military command. BRICS, a network, no permanent HQ, annual summits. The United States is central to NATO. For BRICS, an aim is to create an alternative to a US-dominated world. Yet both make decisions by consensus and both grapple with internal divisions. NATO over spending and strategy, BRICS over rivalries like India and China. Both see themselves as essential for global stability and prosperity. They just have wildly different blueprints for how to achieve it. They are two giants on the global stage. So after all that, we come back to the big question. In a 10-minute showdown, NATO versus BRICS, who wins? Well, the honest answer is, it's the wrong question. This isn't a football match where one team scores more goals and takes home a trophy. It's not direct competition. NATO would win any military confrontation, hands down. Its combined military power, technological superiority, and interoperability make it dominant on the battlefield. But BRICS isn't trying to fight NATO on a battlefield. It's trying to win on the economic and diplomatic field, infrastructure, trade, and influence. The real takeaway is what these blocs mean for a shifting world. Multipolarity affects the global economy, trade, energy prices, technology, and your wallet. So, while there's no clear winner, the real loser would be anyone who chooses to ignore this monumental global shift. And you wouldn't want to be that person, now would you?